Cleveland has many landmarks: the guardians of traffic, the Terminal Tower, the lakefront skyline. But few are as instantly recognizable as those three pink silos along I-480 marked milk, sugar, and cocoa. They're the unmistakable sign that you're near Malley's Chocolates, a place where Clevelanders have been satisfying their sweet tooths for over 90 years. What began as a single candy shop in Lakewood in 1935 has grown into a family tradition across Northeast Ohio, famous for its pink and green boxes to ice cream parlors and those unforgettable chocolate treats that most of us find in our homes at nearly every holiday. But the Malley story isn't all about nostalgia. It's also about how this third generation family business continues to adapt to new tastes, to new challenges, and also compete with giant pressures that sometimes are happening halfway around the globe and reaching its way into Cleveland kitchens. Today, we are following the story and unwrapping it with Mike Malley, grandson of the founder and one of the family members now leading this Cleveland classic into its next chapter. Mike, welcome to Cleveland Conversations.
Thank you.
So you are celebrating your 90th year here in 2025. Tell us what that's all about. That's pretty exciting.
Oh, it's very exciting. 90 years young. Yeah, my grandfather started the business during the Great Depression, which was a feat in and of itself, back in 1935. And he had started out basically from Meadville, Pennsylvania, is where he was born and raised. And he got his start working during his high school years at a local candy shop in Meadville. And he then, when he was going on to his professional life, he started out as an insurance salesman. I don't think he had much success with that or didn't really care for it too much. And then he got hired by the Cleveland Syrup Company, and his territory was from western Pennsylvania, Meadville area, all over to, way over to Cleveland. And he, on his sales calls in the Cleveland market, he spied a building over on the corner of Lewis Drive and Madison Avenue, which was really the very first Malley store, but it also doubled as the housing for my father and my aunt. So the store got its launch over there on the corner, but he started out there, and it really started out as a delicatessen.
Oh.
And it was a delicatessen when he bought it, and my dad likes to joke that it was pickles and chocolate. But my grandfather really had a knack for doing chocolate, and sort of the urban myth goes that he wasn't that good at making a pastrami sandwich, and his patron said, you know, Mike, why don't you close down and you ought to be a chocolatier. So it didn't take much more encouragement than that, and he tinkered with his hot plate, melting his chocolates down, making his confections, and as they say, the rest is history.
So what was your first job when you started out in this family business?
That's a good question. Boy, my first job, it probably, I don't know, probably if everyone remembers, or we still to this day, you get that artificial plastic Easter grass in your Easter basket.
Sure.
My brothers and I were paid a penny each to stuff that fake grass into little bags and heat seal them on an old-fashioned ironing type thing. And we thought that was great, but years later we joked that we thought we were being taken advantage of some child labor laws. But that was probably a first job that I actually remember that I would call a job. We'd get a big bale of this green grass, and it'd be in the basement of our North Olmsted store, what is now our North Olmsted store, and we'd be down there a penny a bag.
So when someone walks into a Malley's today, is there any chocolates that hark back to those early days of your grandfather?
Oh my gosh, the company is still, the foundation of the company is still my grandfather's recipes. So absolutely yes. You know, you could look at our caramel recipe, that's my grandfather's. The almond toffee piece, which people kind of refer to as English toffee. It's one of our best sellers. It's our Bordeaux chocolate. Or commonly referred to as almond crunch, but you know, I could go on and on, but those are some of the big sellers.
So they hark back to those.
Oh, absolutely. I still, you know, I have sort of index cards that I believe is his handwriting with recipes on it.
Really?
So it's kind of neat.
That is fun. And so what were some, started in the Depression, it's been 90 years, celebrating in 2025. What were some of the challenges that you faced? I mean, the candy industry overall in the country has gone some ups and downs. What are some things that you have done to keep up with the times, or some challenges that you faced?
Well, to cover everything that we've probably faced over the last 90 years, it wouldn't be doing justice to talk on any sort of decade. But, my parents and my aunt and uncle, who were also in the business during the formative years of the company, all the things that happened, during the 70s, the deep recessions. I can remember my father trying to figure out how he's going to make payroll, because back in the day, he was a small business operator, very clever, very smart man, and my mother very dedicated to the business, really good at merchandising and operations and things like that. But to bring it fast forward, I think some of the things we're really wrestling with right now is the price of cocoa.
Right.
Cocoa really saw it skyrocket about 2 years ago, and a lot of that has to do with where we source our cocoa beans, and they come from West Africa in a region called Côte d'Ivoire, and that's where predominantly most of the world gets their cocoa. Cocoa's only grown 10 to 20 degrees north or south of the equator. So it's kind of the running joke. It's like, well, why don't you get it from the United States? Well, if the United States would grow cocoa trees, that'd be great. And there's some cocoa that's grown maybe in Puerto Rico and Hawaii, but not to the degree or the volume that we need to support not only Malley's, but just the U.S. chocolate consumption patterns. But cocoa prices have gone through the roof, and a lot of that has to do with what's going on in that region. It's very weather dependent, and climate change is having a big impact in those regions of the world that do grow cocoa. And if we have one or two bad crops, it can really adversely impact the supply and demand. Or the demand is there, it can just really adversely impact the supply chain. Because the interesting thing I find interesting is that cocoa takes quite a long time to grow and mature to where you get a cocoa pod, to where you get your cocoa beans out of. And even though there's a lot of agricultural scientists looking at this, trying to work with some genetics, but you could go anywhere from the time you plant your cocoa bean in the ground to getting a tree to where you could harvest the actual cocoa pods could be anywhere from 5 to 7 years. Oh. So there's a long cycle that. So they're constantly regenerative replanting these crops. But if you have one or two bad seasons, whether it's super rainy or a drought, it can really have an adverse impact because it's not just like, oh, we can just go get some more cocoa. They have to keep waiting for it to grow. The other thing that's a challenge for those regions of the world, they're very impoverished. And a lot of the cocoa is grown on small family farms. And the successive generations are starting to not want to go into the family business because, as I was saying, if it takes 7 years before you can actually harvest your crop and you have a bad harvest, right, it's not good. It's not like here in the States where, you can grow corn every season. So rubber trees are starting to take over as far as a cash crop for what normally would be cocoa. So we have a lot of those issues impacting us. And then, of course, the dreaded tariff word. Right.
So tell us about that. With President Trump's first year in office, posing tariffs around the world, different countries, crazy rates, nothing very consistent. So, and sometimes they're on, sometimes they're off. How does that affect you in terms of long-term planning and just getting, paying for things?
Well, the long-term planning for us it's difficult. Someone can close that off, sorry. But the long-term planning of it impacts us adversely because we can't long-term plan, because the tariffs are on again, off again. So what a lot of the chocolate suppliers have communicated to us is that it's going to be a pass-through. They're not in a position to absorb it. So that additional tariff is going to be passed on to producers like us here in the States. Sure. Now, we have not seen that impact us yet, but we're being forewarned as to what we could anticipate if, in fact, the tariffs go through, especially for a region of the world like Africa, which right now they're being proposed to be pretty steep.
Let's talk about your store. So you started at this first shop there that you're talking about. You have your main shop in Lakewood, and correct, you've expanded all over Northeast Ohio. You have those 3 silos that I mentioned in the opening. Those are pretty iconic in the city. So how did you decide how are you going to expand around, and are you planning to open up more shops going forward?
Well, there's a lot to unpack there, but okay. Well, I got to give credit where credit's due. The 3 silos is really the brainchild of my brother Dan, who headed up our marketing, and he always has clever ideas, and that was one of them.
They're just decorative, or
they're just decorative?
That's what I thought. Okay,
just decorative, and we got the permit to go ahead and erect them, but it was with the clear understanding that they were not to be food grade. So, they're decorative, but I want to tell everybody that's where we keep the Oompa Loompas because we still like people to think that there's cocoa, milk, and sugar in those silos. So, but they're fun. I'll come out of work and I'll see people getting selfies taken with them. I've seen high school seniors getting their senior portrait taken near the silo. So that's a lot of fun. But as far as further expansion, to operate a retail store in today's environment, a bricks and mortar environment, it's very expensive. With property taxes increasing, the overhead is very expensive, plus the impact of e-commerce. So, we have to be super, super selective now. Not that we weren't before, but we have 18 stores in the city in northeastern Ohio, and at one point we had 23. Mm-hmm. So, we kind of expand and we grow. So, I'm never going to say never that there wouldn't be an expansion. But, we're kind of looking to say, okay, what spot around northeastern Ohio doesn't have a Malley shop that would make sense? Mm-hmm. Because one of the challenges we're facing is, you had mentioned in your opening the fact that, talking about the holidays and how chocolates find their way to people's Easter baskets and stockings, or you get it as a gift or give as a gift. It's kind of the old joke in the Catholic Church, the CEOs. Christmas and Easter only is when we see folks at the big holidays. So we have to make sure that we're not just building retail stores that only are driving customers to the stores during those big seasonal holidays, because our business is so seasonal. So there's months where, it's slow, but that's natural. So, we kind of factor all those things in and say, okay, what would make sense? Where's the next right location? And as far as expanding outside the area, that is on the horizon, but we don't have anything definitive yet.
Sure, but I think one of the great things that I love about your company as a Northeast Ohio company is that I see Malley's everywhere, right? I used to see, when I first moved to town here about 20 years ago, I used to see those stickers on the cars all over the place. I thought that was tremendous advertising. When I go to the public library with my kids, you can buy a bar there. After school, I see kids doing that. I know you guys do a lot of fundraising, so that's also available. And when I shop in grocery stores like Heinen's, there you are there. So you're really partnering with a lot of different organizations in town, right? Mm-hmm.
Yes, absolutely. We feel that that's just a great way to extend the brand. With Heinen's, you brought up Heinen's. That's a recent, we just started working with them this past year, and it's been a really good success. Working with the Heinen family and the Malley family, we've been long patrons of the Heinen stores. They have a great grocery store chain. So it's really exciting that we can be a partner with them and have, we don't have all of our chocolates in their stores, but we have some select SKUs in their stores. Mm-hmm. And what that's affording us is, when you think about where you want to build another retail store, Heinen's has grocery stores in areas that we don't particularly have a store. And it's a good way to also say, wow, the sales are really doing well. We're introducing product to maybe some customers that may not be familiar with Malley's. It adds a convenient factor. We're also partnering with Buehler's, which is more of an Akron-Canton, more southern area of grocery store, and they've been a great partner as well. So it gets our product out and exposes it to potentially new customers, as well as we have the fan favorites. Customers that are like, oh wow, I can pick up some Malley's while I'm at Heinen's. And we've also seen that we haven't seen it have a negative impact on Malley's, meaning we're still seeing foot traffic to our stores that are even near the Heinen stores.
Right. So when people go to the stores, I've shopped there almost every holiday. Get something.
Thank you.
What? I bet there are probably viewers are wondering. I wonder what is. Obviously, it's Christmas that's their biggest holiday, but I know Halloween is also growing. Easter maybe is the biggest one. I'm guessing. Mm-hmm. Why don't you tell us what's the biggest holiday sales for you guys?
Halloween surprisingly is not. Mm-hmm. We do a lot of specialty candies for Halloween, and we sell a lot of Malley bars for distribution for people to give out. But Christmas and Easter are kind of neck and neck for probably the biggest. But when you look at Christmas season, we look at the Christmas season, and it's starting earlier and earlier every year. But Christmas season for us is about from Veterans Day all the way through. It's just not like a one-day event.
Sure.
Easter is the same thing. It's usually you start getting into Holy Week and you'll see your sales really take off. But usually it's a couple weeks leading up to that, so you get a month. But the biggest day of sales, though, is February 13th, followed by February 14th, which is Valentine's. Mm-hmm. those 2 days alone are the number 1 and number 2 revenue days, bar none. Easter and Christmas, as far as a single day in those seasons, don't come close to that.
Interesting. Okay, so that's so Valentine's Day especially, definitely you want to come early.
Yes.
So what about for in terms of just like the pink and green coloring? Was that always part of the brand? Was that something that you
That
always
was
had?
something my mother, probably back in the 70s. I wish I should know the answer to this better, but that was the idea of my mother. She was very much into merchandising, styling, coloring, the way the brand would look, and there was a lot of. She was very big on learning what colors were in fashion during each year, and the pink and green. What really became of it was they really complement the brown chocolate. So it's and they've become iconic colors for the brand.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's it's well known. People people recognize that immediately. So I think that's definitely important. So you've been a family-run business for 90 years. Recently, you've sold the business. You're still part of the board of directors. Tell us where that is as moving ahead as no longer family-owned itself, but still controlling the company to some extent.
Yeah, we're really excited about this. You hear the stories and the statistics out there that very few family businesses make it to the third generation. Right. The first generation launches the business, the second generation grows the business, and unfortunately sometimes the third generation, as they joke, just spends it all. And I'm one of 6 siblings, and we all had an equal stake in the business, and we all get along just swimmingly. And we had a lot of really heartfelt meetings. We had a great board of advisors, and it was really decided that we just didn't really have an alignment on where we wanted to go with the business. And so we decided to explore the possibility of a sale. And I'm excited about it because, to me, I think what we've done is ensure that there's going to be a very smooth succession and there's going to be longevity to the business. Now, some people have asked why not 4th generation, but that just really wasn't in the cards. It's not because the 4th generation wasn't interested in it. It was just, it really wasn't presented as, this should be a career path for you. And I know there's the adage, never say never, but the family decided this is the path we wanted to go on. So a couple of years back, we decided to pursue a sale. I think we found some fantastic investors that are very committed to the brand, want to see it grow. And for the first time in the company's history, we're going to have a non-family member head the organization in its 90th year. And we're excited about that. And we think that's going to really be a good thing for the business. And like you said, the family still has a board representation. And we're all living here in Cleveland. So, not many things are going to get done without our scrutiny, our affectionate scrutiny.
Sure. And everything will, when you walk into the store, everything will continue to look familiar. The chocolate will still taste
absolutely.
Absolutely. What do you think, after 90 years, what do you think your grandfather would say if he walked into a store today or, looked at the books, or how would he be surprised how the company has grown to such extent?
I think he would be floored. I think, he'd be floored when you said when he looked at the books. I think he'd be shocked. I think he'd probably have something to say about maybe some of the chocolates. He was a real perfectionist on our chocolates. Not that our chocolate isn't perfect, but every chef or cook has a certain eye of detail. When my grandfather started the business, back in the Great Depression, I mean, good heavens, we like to tell a joke. He didn't really understand credit, and it's not to disparage the man. He was brilliant. But he would take the trolley car downtown to the food terminal and get his block of chocolate, come back, make his chocolate, sell it. And after a lot of repeated times doing this, they finally said, hey, Mike, you know what? Your money's good with us. We're going to put you on credit, and we'll deliver the chocolate to you. So, you go from a man that had to sell, take the cash, and then go buy some more raw materials to do it, to now see what we're doing, where we're going through over 1 million pounds of milk chocolate alone a year. So he would be floored. And I think he'd be super, super happy to see his grandchildren all, thriving in the business and having, a very good life. That's something that he started.
Mm-hmm. Would you say that third generation and fourth generation all have very sharp sweet tooths there in your family?
I would say we're all, yes, all my siblings and I, we all have our favorites, and we're all somewhat connoisseurs of, we know what good chocolate tastes like and should look like.
Right. Do you, when you were talking about earlier about getting the chocolate and growing the cocoa beans, you've traveled to West Africa to source those?
Unfortunately, I have never made the trip.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to, but there's very few companies that actually source cocoa beans. Now, there's been a trend of late where people like to do the bean to bar, and maybe they will source their beans. But there's like 3 major, maybe 4 major chocolate processors in the world that actually have the resources to do
source
something
it
like
themselves.
that.
Mm-hmm.
But we're very clear on, the source and the origin of where that cocoa bean comes from.
Right. Where do you see the candy business overall today, right? Consumers are, of course, we see wine and beer sales declining. People are moving away from alcohol. People are looking for more healthier choices. How does the company going to be reacting to those kind of sort of consumer trends going forward? Do you see yourselves coming up with some healthier, quote unquote, healthier style chocolate in the future? Or you think there'll always be a desire for chocolate for Valentine's Day or holidays? You'll be
well,
okay?
I think there's always going to be a desire for chocolate, and our chocolate. When you say healthy, people all say they want to eat healthier, but we look at Malley's as, if you're going to indulge, just indulge and enjoy it. We don't try to pretend that you're coming into the store to find some healthy alternative. Now, what I would say is we use very, very good ingredients, very wholesome ingredients. So you're not going to find a lot of additives, a lot of preservatives, a lot of junk in our candy, in our confections. So, if you're going to indulge, you're going to eat something that's, I look at it as, if I'm going to indulge, I want to indulge in something that's good. And I think, people like to treat themselves. We've never, even though my mother might joke, oh, wait a minute, chocolate's one of the main food groups. White chocolate, dark chocolate, chocolate truffles, and milk chocolate.
There you go.
But, the data's out there, and some other companies have, they infuse a lot of protein into their candies and things like that. And we just have not really seen the market for us because, again, we're a retail outfit. Now, if we were just a single origin, 1 or 2 SKUs, that might be something we look at getting into.
Mm-hmm. Can you give our viewers any I'm going to use the word taste of what is coming up? Anything in the plans going forward? Like in the next year, you might be able to see something unusual that you guys are working on?
Something unusual.
Or something different?
We're always trying to come up with something kind of funky and a little interesting. I mean, we've done collaborations with the local taco chain here, Barrio, and done their tortilla chips around Cinco de Mayo. We've done chocolate-covered pickles, which I think is a very acquired taste with Cleveland pickle back in the day. As far as something immediate on the horizon, I don't know. We're going to have to see what the Oompa Loompas are cooking up.
Right. So, I mean, you and your family, you're Cleveland's original Willy Wonkas. Do you lean into that? Is that something you...
Oh, sure. Why not? Why not? I think for Halloween, some of the years we've tried to, someone's tried to dress like Willy Wonka, so it's fun.
Right. So it's part inspiration, but also a lot of hard work behind.
Oh, there was a lot of hard work. The old saying, my siblings and I, we stand on the shoulders of giants. And my siblings and I worked, I'm not going to say we worked really hard. Everybody works hard. But, when I see what the sacrifices my parents made, taking a second mortgage out on a house to, fund the building of a new store. What my grandfather and grandmother had to do to get things going. Those kind of sacrifices and things are pretty intense. And, then again, my siblings and our generation, with the advent of the internet, that was something my parents' generation, didn't have to contend with
Sure.
e-commerce and cybersecurity. So every generation has its own unique set of challenges that they would have to face.
Great. So when you're out looking for candy coming up for any holidays, obviously you're going to be going to Malley's. Mike Malley, thanks for being with us on Cleveland Conversations today. We really enjoyed it.
Thank you for the interest.
And we'll see you next time on Cleveland Conversations.